Hi and welcome to next tutorial. In today's lesson we are going to learn about using data validation in Excel. So anyways guys, let's jump in. So the first thing that we have here is we have a sheet made in Excel and we just want to run some simple data validation on each of these things. We're going to start over here with the subject. Instead of writing the subject each and every time, we want to create a drop-down box. Now there are many ways that we can actually create a drop-down box and I'll show you some of these ways now. The first thing that we can do is we can click on the cell that we want to create the drop-down box in, go up to data validation, go down and choose list, and then put your subjects in manually. So this will work when you have things that don't change. So now we've got all the subjects there, but let's say I wanted to add another subject. I would have to go back to data validation, open it up again, and it's not really dynamic. Okay, so I'll show you another way that we can actually do this. So I've just created a new sheet over here and I've just listed the subjects down. Now again, it's very simple to use this. We can use it in the same way. So when we go back into our data validation, if we put down the subjects like this, what we can do is click this button over here, go to our new sheet, highlight that range, press OK. So we still have our drop down list, but now it's still not dynamic. So even if I added a new subject here, it won't pop up over here. So there's another way that we can actually make this more dynamic. All right, so what we need to do is we need to go back to our new sheet and we need to convert this to a table by pressing Control T. And then I'm just going to press OK. So now once I've converted it to a table, you can see that that little blue icon over there is the end of my table. So what we need to do is we need to go into our table design and we need to call this table something. So I'm just going to call it subjects. Now what we need to do is we need to get a little formula by pressing equals and then highlighting this entire table, and then it will give me the header over here, which is the subjects, and the table name. So in my case it's subjects and subjects. So I'm just going to copy that because I'll need it back for over here. So now we're going to run some data validation on that cell again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that cell, go into data, go to data validation, and when I get to down here, I'm going to press Control V to paste. Now this won't work just like that, and what we need to do is we need to run the indirect function. So we're going to run indirect bracket quotation marks and then close the bracket. So now when I press OK, now I've got all my 4 subjects there. And if I go back to my sheet, let's say I want to add another subject. All right, well let's add another one, chemistry. Now you can see that the table has expanded, and when I go over to my subject, biology and chemistry are there, and that's great. So now I can choose a subject and I can drag it down and do the same for the next row. So that's pretty cool. So now I'm going to enter the date of birth and we're going to run some data validation on that. So what we can do is we go back up to data validation, and this time we are going to look at the date data validation. So I want to make sure that your date of birth cannot be a date in the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say less than the end date, which is today. So I'm going to write equal today, and then you have to open and close brackets, press OK. And now when I write a date, let's say 12/12/22, it gives us an error. Now this error message isn't really that great, so we're going to go and change that as well. So I'm going to click on that cell again, go back into data validation, and these 2 options over here, I'm going to write some stuff in the input message. So let's say for the date, I'm going to say please enter a valid date. But for my error alert, I'm going to write incorrect value, and my error message is going to be please enter a valid date. So now I've got this little box that pops up, and you can apply it to any of these cells as well, just to help the user know what to actually write in them. But let's say for instance, I now try to add another date that's in the future. It gives me another message, but it says please enter a valid date. So let's retry that, and let's just put it as 01. All right, cool. So that worked. Now we're going to work on the student ID. And really, I want the student ID to be to follow a kind of formula. So the formula that I want it to follow is going to be S dash, and then, you know, like a few digits, something like that. So what we need to do here is we need to go back into our data validation, and we need to go into our settings, and we are going to be using the custom method. Okay. Once we are in this formula section over here, we're going to write out our formula, which is going to be equal count if. All right, then we're going to open bracket, and now we need to get that cell value. So that's going to be C5, C5. Then we press comma, and now we're going to open up the quotations and write what we actually want to appear in that cell. So it has to be S dash asterisk, which is a wildcard, which is going to represent a number of values. And then we're going to close the quotations and close the bracket. So now when I go over here to my error alert, I'm going to put the title as error, and the message is going to be please enter a value in this format, S-1234. And then when I press OK, now when I go over here, if I write anything else, so just 1, 2, 3, 4, all right, it's going to give me back that error. So I need to make sure that I press S-1234 and everything is great. So finally, moving on to the subject comment. Now the subject comment is just very simple data validation. Just go back into the settings, and this time we are going to go to text length, and we just want to make sure that we, you know, put more than just one word. So we're just going to put a minimum of, let's say, I don't know, 15 characters. And so if you press OK on that, and if you only wrote, you know, one word or 2 words, all right, it's going to say an error. So what you need to do is you need to be able to type a little bit more. So once you've done that, then that data validation is fine. And finally over here we have the estimated mark. Now this will we only want a number in here, and a number from 0 to 100. So what we need to do is we need to go on that cell, go to data validation, and we need to change this to a, let's say, a whole number between the minimum can be 0 and the maximum can be 100. And our error alert is please enter a number between 0 and 100. And we can also do the same thing for our import message. So I'm just going to press OK. So now you can see that when you get to that cell, that pops up just like we did over here, and it's probably a good idea to do it for all of them. So our estimated mark, if we wrote 110, all right, so what we need to do is just put a number between 0 and 100, and that's basically it. So anyways guys, that's a simple look at how to validate data in Excel. I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.